Travis Wayne Goodsell. The church has had to deal with a major question from Mormons about the actual geography of the Book of Mormon. And the reason why, other than Mormons believe the Book of Mormon is a real history, and therefore as a real history we can identify the geographical location with just simple archaeology, using the Book of Mormon clues to help us out. But the church has not really given a statement for where it's located, other than the Americas with the Hill Cumorah there in western New York. The reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now the Community of Christ, were the ones who claimed that it was Central and South America where this occurred. And so by the time you get to President Benson, you have Mormons who are prominent enough to debate at BYU about the one Cumorah versus two Cumorah theories. You first need to know how to make a theory before you can claim it's a theory. Nonetheless, they debated it at BYU in front of a live audience, live studio audience. And it got so heated that I'm not sure if they came to blows or they were just getting verbally angry at each other. It got that bad. And so it was necessary for President Benson to step in and solve the problem. One Cumorah. Because he doesn't want to admit that the reorganized church may have been right. Whether they are or not, he does not want to side with the reorganized church. And as a result, the manuals for the Book of Mormon started producing a map. This is the one that you see first, listed in this video that I already have up, is a slightly embellished, emphasized map of the church's bland official map. It's the same geographical look, and that's it, that's all, other than the extra buildings or whatever and coloring and such. And Mormon, that was supposed to end the discussion. The prophet gave his official word, end of story, right? No. Mormons don't give a damn about what the prophet says when it goes against their spiritual witness. And so you still have Mormons to this day who insist they know the geographical location that proves the Book of Mormon is a real history. They've got their maps, and they've got their theories behind it. And they're all wrong. They're going contrary to the Word of God. Just hilarious. And there's some problems as the church refuses to designate the lands of the Book of Mormon. Because if they do, and it's shown to be wrong, oops, wow, the prophets really are embarrassed on this one. And so if they don't designate a land, well, then they're safe, right? Well, no, they're still in trouble. Mormons just don't understand it yet. By not designating, they're demonstrating they're not prophets, or they're non-verbally communicating that the Book of Mormon is not history. And I don't know how long it's going to take for Mormons to catch on, especially the map makers in the church. But nonetheless, that's the way it is. When doing a map, though, you've got to go by what the text tells you. You know, for example, J.R.R. Tolkien, he made maps for us, as well as described the locations in his books. And so we get to see the whole realm. Same with Lord of the Rings. There's maps made for us so that we can see the map. But the Book of Mormon doesn't have a map drawn for us. It just describes, in great detail actually, the locations between various cities. And so during my captivity that the church had paid for and caught them paying for it, and then when I caught them paying for it, I caught them trying to cover up that they were paying for it. Nonetheless, state of Utah, you don't get rights. Crime is not a crime when you're the leadership or the church. And that's another topic of how conservative leadership believes they are the voice for the people and the people must just submit. Nonetheless, you know, that's what Benson was trying to enforce on Mormons about maps. And Mormons aren't going for it, are they? No, they're not. So I did a reading of the Book of Mormon from beginning to the end once they landed in the Promised Land, having left the Land of Bountiful in Saudi Arabia and came to the Americas and followed every single geographical identifier and put it in as written. And so the second map that you see hand-drawn is that very map that I did. I don't know how long it took me. It takes me a while to read, so it could have been upwards of a month or two to work on this. But I had plenty of time on my hands as I was in a cell. So there you have it. And notice that I don't draw lines for the beaches. I let the Book of Mormon dictate how the map is supposed to look. And sure enough, I immediately recognized that it was North and South America. Now that goes contrary to Benson. It goes contrary even to the Solomon Spalding theory, per se. Because Solomon Spalding's map relied on that area by Michigan and western New York of it's not the Hopewell Indians. Those are further south, aren't they? There was an abandoned ancient site in that location. And there's even some map makers I knew. He was a former he is a former friend. We were involved in what we tried to get going as an anti-apologetic Mormon scientific-based voice for the church, but it didn't hold together too well. But one of the guys in the group published a book about his actual research. He went to the location, walked the area, claimed he got it, and that just happened to correspond with Solomon Spaulding's location, because the names are still there to this day and all that. However, it's different, as you can see, when I went through the Book of Mormon to tell me. He instead went by the geographical location first, then imposed the Book of Mormon onto it. Can't do that if you're trying to be scientific. You have to let the text dictate. And since we don't have the actual plates, we have to rely on Joseph's translation powers with a rock and a hat that had no editings, despite our using the edited Book of Mormon to this day. And I've talked about this situation in other videos. So, to deal with one particular guy who wants to claim that there were no maps available, and he's been banned, so he's not able to listen to this video other than not being signed in. And so, if he does watch this video, he's going to freak out and go nuts. I need to comment. I need to comment. He needs to read my research. That'll prove to him that I'm right. Oh, what a loser. But nonetheless, the first of the maps is the 17th century map, so that's 1600s, and then an 18th century map, which is 1700s. You can see that in 100 years they were cleaning it up a little bit, and so easily corresponds to my map. Now, it's possible Solomon Spaulding used the location to tell a story about how they came to the tip of South America and migrated north, and then ended up in that location and just used the names at that location for the other names migrating upward. If you know about it, it's a fiction book that he wrote. He's not trying to write an actual history of the indigenous people of America. It was just a fun book that he, like a bedtime story, take it to the tavern, read it to the townsfolk, and that's how they knew about it. When the Book of Mormon came to town, they went, well, wait a minute, Lehi, Nephites, wait a minute, no, we recognize these names. You got this from Solomon Spaulding. And so that seems to be the most likely scenario, is that he used the abandoned ancient site as his basis for the story, and had him migrate from the Middle East to the southern tip of America, and then migrated up. And if you're saying, oh, well, it's not even scientific because man came over the Bering Strait and then migrated south. No. No. You see, when a scholar or a scientist claims to present a theory for you that cannot be tested, and yet because of his stature as maybe a PhD or in working at the school as a professor, getting grants to maintain a living, it's important to understand they still have to follow the rules of science. Like I said, you can't start with the conclusion and work your way back to reaffirm your conclusion. That's poor science. You have to start, in this case, with the literature, follow the literature out, and my map would be the one for the Book of Mormon, technically. Regardless of whether it's a real history or fiction, that would be the map. And of course it is fiction, but specifically coded fiction. So I've gone over that in other videos as well. So just to fill in and update you, I was going through my pictures and came across it. Went, oh yeah, cool. And so yeah, I'm trying to. I've got 18,000 pictures left to sort into general category files, and then I've got to go into each and every general category file and sort them more specifically. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's abridgment time, as I've said. And so even though YouTube banned me, I was intending to not really do much for videos anyway. But they got pissed when I called out the church for sex slavery and trafficking. We're unhappy. And so they needed to make sure nobody saw my video so the church can get away with it. So there you go. Now you know. And of course they followed me onto this channel because they know the two are connected, and they've been causing problems through that process too, as you can very well see. When you look at the videos, you can tell exactly when I started or restarted on this channel.